Okay, this is a response video to Rossclot222. Now, apparently, he's accused me of being a Golovkin hater, and Golovkin hater. I don't give him credit for anything. Blah 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 blah. And the reason why Ross Clot is accusing me, is making these accusations towards me, is because of my critique of Gennady Golovkin's performance against Kell Brook. Now, before I proceed, I have to make this clear. I've admired Gennady Golovkin, and I still admire Gennady Golovkin, even though I have been critical of him as of late. Okay, when he was rising in the middleweight rankings, I see a guy who's enthusiastic, who's got character, and he has the highest regard and respect for the sport. Okay, he's given us exciting, he's given us knockouts. He's pleasing the crowd with his style of fighting, and he has a dream, and I can respect that. His goal is to become middleweight champion, which he has, and his goal is to unify the division. I have no problem with that. Now, this is actually a response to your first question, Ross Clot. You're accusing me of saying that you don't want Gennady Golovkin. Or actually, this is more towards Sean Newton. He's saying that, you and him is accusing me of saying that you don't want Gennady Golovkin to break Bernard Hopkins' record at middleweight. No, you're wrong. All records are meant to be broken. I want him to succeed as a great middleweight champion and break that record. I have no problem with him doing that. Okay. However, when Gennady Golovkin was struggling and continues to struggle to get fights with the top middleweights, he said himself that I will fight anyone from 154 to 168. Let me repeat. All right. He said that I will fight anyone from 154 to 168. Okay. And when he issued that challenge, you had guys like Erislandy Lara and Andre Ward answer to the challenge. And what happened? Erislandy Lara was dismissed. Loeffner and his team, which represents Golovkin, of course, they said, no, we're not interested in Erislandy Lara. They said that we'll only take on certain fighters at 154. But in reality, Golovkin and his team used that as a strategy to lure guys like Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao in, because Golovkin wanted to fight those two guys. And you never criticized Golovkin for that. Okay? Now, when Erislandy Lara responded to the challenge, you and others criticized Erislandy Lara, but not give Golovkin no criticism for rejecting that fight. Yeah, I understand, or rejecting the notion of making a fight with him. I understand that Lara and his team had came out and said that, you know what, we haven't approached K2 or anything about a fight with Golovkin. So you and others have used that as an advantage to dismiss Erislandy Lara and say, you know what, he wasn't serious. Well, really, Golovkin wasn't serious either, because he initially dismissed the fight. He ducked the notion of making that fight happen. So they both ducked each other, and to this day, Golovkin is still ignoring Lara. By doing that, you're ducking that fighter. You're ignoring him when he's calling you out multiple times, and I just can't understand that. Especially if you're going to issue a challenge like that to all the fighters at 154 to 168. Initially, it was 154 to 175, and then he scaled it back to 168. Okay? Now, when Andre Ward, the best fighter at 168 at that time, had responded to the challenge, what did Golovkin do? He just said that, you know what? I'll fight you, but you have to agree to a catch weight. What? Wait, hold up. See, this is where the criticism is warranted on Golovkin's part, because you cannot call out a weight class and then one of those fighters respond to your challenge. You want to talk about catch weights. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You lose points for that, and you deserve to be criticized for that. But what did you do and others do? You criticized Ward instead. Wow. Didn't offer any criticism for Golovkin for doing that and not for rejecting that fight when he had a chance to take that fight at the full 168 limit. Okay? So my point is that you cannot, criticize fighters for certain reasons and not hold Golovkin to those same standards, in which you vocally admitted that you will not criticize Gennady Golovkin no matter what, because you like how he fights. Period. You've admit that, and I respect your mission. I respect that your mission to that. Okay, but you have to understand that he's not above criticism, which you have a problem with me doing and others. Okay, now let's move on to the Kell Brook fight. Kell Brook shocked us all with that performance. Okay, he didn't. I didn't expect. I initially said that he would actually make that fight competitive to a degree, but I didn't think he was going to make this fight this competitive, where he made Golovkin look very vulnerable to uppercuts, counter left hooks, right hooks. Made him, look bad offensively by slipping through his punches, making him miss a lot of punches and shots. I mean, and to make matters worse, make matters worse. To top things off, he took Golovkin's best power punches. It didn't look like he was out on his feet when he took it. And to my surprise, that was shocking. And Golovkin was shocked because he was very frustrated after the second round because he was hitting this guy with everything and he wouldn't go down. And Kell Brook was standing toe-to-toe with him and even backed up Golovkin a few times in that fight. Okay? And in that particular fight, as I've mentioned and you got pissed off about, is that Golovkin was flat-footed as always. He's slow. He's reckless coming in. He doesn't move his head or lack of head movement. And he just keeps himself extremely wide open after throwing power shots. Okay? When people say that he's exposed, that's the reason why he was exposed. Now, I've initially stated that he was exposed prior to that fight. Okay? When I meant by exposed, and I'm going to elaborate here so that way you can understand. I said on many occasions that Golovkin is easy to hit. He's got hit so many times in prior fights with Willie Monroe, Kasi Uma. I think Drosak had hit him quite often in that fight as well. Dominic Wade had hit him quite a few times, and Curtis Stevens. So this guy gets hit all the damn time. Okay, yes, Golovkin can say that those punches have no effect on him. Okay, fine, they don't. But let me tell you this: if you continue to get punched in the head the way you do, you're gonna have long-term effects down the road. Okay, I don't care who you are. Because the human brain is a very, very sensitive component to the human body, okay? Down the road, if Golovkin continues to get hit the way he does and have no regard for defense, he's going to have health issues, especially at that age, okay? I just can't understand that you're going to dismiss all the things that Kell Brook did. You gave him a little bit of credit for taking the fight, but you dismissed the fact that the success that he had against Golovkin. All right, let's dismiss the fact that even though Golovkin broke his orbital bone, okay, fine. But let's dismiss the fact that Kell Brook also he busted up Golovkin's nose. He bruised his face pretty badly. And that's very, very surprising coming from a welterweight. Okay? And what pisses me off about that is that you won't give Brook any more credit than he deserved for doing what he did. Okay? So I just don't understand that. Why can't you just come out and say, you know what? Golovkin did win the fight. I'm happy he won the fight, but he needs to work on his defense. He needs to work on, he needs to fight on his, toes a little bit more. He needs to move his head. He needs to stop, staying stationary, stop being a stationary target. I just can't believe that you won't even say that, you and others. I mean, it seems to me you guys just want to propagate this theory that Gennady Golovkin is a totally complete, he's a total package, he's a complete fighter. No, he's not a complete fighter. He's definitely a great offensive fighter, but in that fight against Brook, he was very, very clumsy, okay? And you went on to say that people like me and others don't know shit about boxing if we're going to criticize Gennady Golovkin's performance against Kell Brook. Well, I'll tell you what. If you're going to say that, then you're also saying that Paulie Malignaggi, Carl Froch, and Matthew Macklin, who was Golovkin's former opponent, by the way, they don't know shit about boxing because they actually agree with everything I said, and they also have the same assessment that I've had about Golovkin's performance. If you don't believe me, take a look at the articles. Take a look at the interviews. They said that Golovkin was sloppy, and he was clumsy, and he was missing all over the place. And he was throwing slow punches. That's what he did. Okay? So if those guys don't know shit about boxing, why don't you climb in the ring against those guys? And by the way, 2 of those 3 guys were former world champions, so I'm sure they know what they're talking about. So why don't you climb in the ring with them and tell them and show them why they don't know shit about boxing, why they're wrong about Gennady Golovkin's performance against Kell Brook, okay? And then you accuse me for calling Gennady Golovkin a weight bully. Well, let me elaborate on that, okay? First things first. Sean Newton and I had a discussion, and he keeps arguing with me about this. I don't know why, because I point out the fact that when the Andre Ward Gennady Golovkin fallout occurred, of course, when Golovkin rejected the Ward fight for 168, Sean Newton replies that why does Ward fights at 175? Why should we talk about that fight now? Well, obviously, I only replied by saying, well, Hopkins moved up from 160 175 to take on Antonio Tarver, the linear champion at that time, and became the oldest light heavyweight champion in in history. Okay, so if Bernard Hopkins can do it, why can't Golovkin do it? And then you went in there and interjected and replied by saying, well, Hopkins' best wins is against small guys, against welterweights. Well, guess what? Golovkin's highest profile win is probably his best win is against a welterweight. Okay? So pretty much you're going to say, well, you shit on Hopkins for that too. I don't know why, but you won't criticize Golovkin for fighting small guys. But anyways, that's a different video. But it's funny though, because it's like, man, I lost it here. Hold on. It's funny though, because you call Hopkins a weight bully. That's right. Here you go. You call Hopkins a weight bully for fighting small guys in that conversation we had. So I only replied by saying that, well, okay, well, if Hopkins is a weight bully, then so is Golovkin, because he dragged up a welterweight to fight him at 160, and he's been trying to get small guys in the ring for a while now. He's actually fought small guys, by the way, but prior to that, he was trying to get Mayweather and Pacquiao in the ring. So why haven't you criticized Golovkin for that? And that's why you went ballistic and called me a hater and being biased and all that. It's funny though, because when people praises Gennady Golovkin, you say that they're being unbiased. But when Golovkin gets some form of constructive criticism, you say they're haters. Wow, okay. And speaking of defense, you went on a reply to say that you expect Gennady Golovkin to have Floyd Mayweather style defense? No, we're not saying that he should. All I'm saying is that he needs to have some basic fundamentals of defense, like head movement, pairing off punches. Don't let opponents control your distance. Don't let opponents come inside and tee you off like they hit you with monsters uppercuts. That's exactly what happened. Golovkin, again, he just needs to go to the gym and work on that. He needs to move his head, man. Again, I have to repeat myself. You wouldn't even give no ounce of criticism of Golovkin for that performance, particularly from a defensive standpoint. Unbelievable. And what pisses me off about this also as well, about that Kell Brook performance, is that you and Golovkin, I already said this already. I said Golovkin couldn't even admit that Kell Brook gave him probably the toughest fight of his career so far. Couldn't even admit that. But oh no, he wants to undermine Kell Brook by saying, well, he's a welterweight, which we are. I mean, he's a middleweight, which we already knew he's not a middleweight. He couldn't hurt me. But yet, when Michelle Joy Phelps had proposed the same question what Bernard Hopkins had asked him at the post-fight press conference, he gave an evasive answer. He didn't want to give Kell Brook more credit than he deserves. Okay? Unbelievable. Unfucking believable. But yeah, you guys want to use that orbital bone injury as a way to negate what Kell Brook did. Okay, fine. But speaking of that, you want to criticize others like myself for saying that fight shouldn't have been stopped due to that orbital bone injury. Well, you tend to forget that your idol, one of your greatest fighters one of the best fighters one of your favorite fighters of all time, Sugar Ray Leonard, he fought with a detached retina going into the Thomas Hearns fight back in 1981. In case you sure you remember that, right? Before that fight, he suffered that injury in sparring, and he had that fight re-injured again in the fight against Thomas Hearns. Okay, and I think he did bust an orbital bone in that fight, and he continued on. He fought Hearns. It took the fight to him and stopped him in the 14th round. Okay, so Sugar Ray Leonard didn't quit in that fight, and neither Kell Brook. Kell Brook didn't quit either, okay? But obviously his corner threw in the towel. But Sugar Ray Leonard's corner didn't throw in a towel, and I've seen many fighters fight through injuries. I've seen during the middle of fights. I've seen Arthur Abraham fight all 12 rounds with a busted jaw, with a broken jaw against Edison Miranda. If you ask me personally, I didn't think he should have continued that fighting that way, but he did. He did it and got through it and defended his title retained his title against Miranda. Okay, Danny Williams fought with a separated shoulder, against one of his opponents and knocked him out. Okay, I've seen many fighters fight through injuries and in the course of a fight, and they don't quit. Okay, now, if you don't agree with any of us that believes that fight shouldn't have stopped, then you also don't agree with Bernard Hopkins' assessment. Okay, because Bernard Hopkins said that fight shouldn't have been stopped. Okay, but from another perspective, I understand that's a serious injury. Then fine, you're trying to preserve the safety of your fighter. That's just my opinion, but don't crap on others' opinions on that, why that fight should not been stopped. And Kell Brook wasn't even out on his feet, and he took Golovkin's best punches. He made Golovkin miss like it was no tomorrow. Missed so many goddamn punches. That's why I question those punch stats to a degree, but it is what it is. He got the win. Okay? So, other than that, speaking of boxing history, people don't know shit about boxing. Apparently, you don't know shit about Harry Greb. Especially that comment you made on Diplomat's video, which is not a quite smart video on his part to make, about why Golovkin should be rated over Harry Greb. You made a comment by saying that, hey man, have you seen Harry Greb's training video with a laughing emoticon on it? Obviously, that's a disrespect towards Harry Greb. Now, if you're going to say that if you're going to disregard Harry Greb's career based off the fact that we haven't seen any footage of any of his fights, then maybe you should disregard Barbados, the Demon, Barbados Joe Wilcott's career, because we have no footage of his fights. But we all accept the fact of what he did and what he was able to accomplish in his career based off the memoirs of the fighters that he fought, based off the sports writers and the journalists who were there to witness his fights. Okay? Now, Harry Greb, let me tell you something about Harry Greb, in fact, you didn't know. Harry Greb went 45-0 in 1 year as a pro, okay? In that very year, he had over 20 Hall of Fame fights, Hall of Fame and championship fights, and he won all those fights because he was undefeated that year. That is far greater than anything that Gennady Golovkin done in his 11th year career as a pro in 36 pro fights. Okay? If you honestly believe that Gennady Golovkin is greater than Harry Greb based off the fact that you were able to witness Gennady Golovkin fight, then I don't know, man. I don't know. And speaking of history, if you want to dismiss that fact that we haven't seen footage of any of these fighters like Harry Greb, then maybe we should dismiss the fact that Abraham Lincoln was not the 16th president of the United States. Okay? We haven't seen Abraham Lincoln's inauguration address. We haven't seen any footage of his debates. We haven't seen him sign the Emancipation Declaration. The Emancipation Proclamation legislation into law. We haven't seen that, which actually was the tipping point of the Civil War. We haven't seen that footage. We haven't seen him signing the legislations into law. There's no footage of that. So if you're going to use that to discredit Harry Greb, then you're totally wrong, man. You're totally wrong. Okay, now, when did Keith Thurman ever call out Gennady Golovkin? Because I never heard of that. When? Please let me know. Okay? And another thing, you also said that Kell Brook exposed, you get pissed off that people say that Kell Brook exposed Gennady Golovkin over a few shots. No, it's actually more than a few shots. I don't know if you watched the fight. If you didn't, I suggest you watch it again. Because Kell Brook was pretty much teeing off on Golovkin as much as you want to towards the end of the first round up to the third round. Okay? In the fourth round, he had some success too. It was pretty even round. So, with that said, I don't know, man. And you're also accusing other middleweights for waiting for Golovkin to slow down. Well, just not middleweights. Maybe Jacobs and Saunders and Quillen, yeah. But Lar wanted to fight before the Brook fight. So did Andre Ward. Okay. Well, another thing about the exposure of other fighters. Lennox Lewis, Lennox Lewis. We all know Lennox Lewis didn't have that. We all knew that Lennox Lewis had a suspect chin at heavyweight. We all know that when he got knocked out by Oliver McCall. But at that time, Lennox learned his lesson. He started to be a little bit more defensive-minded, and he was very difficult to hit after that McCall fight. Yes, he got caught against Hasim Rahman, okay? But other than that, he learned. And, of course, he got lazy in this Vitaly Klitschko fight, but he able to fight back and win that fight, okay? Every fighter's going to learn from their mistakes, and Golovkin's got to do the same thing. And this is the reason why we say he got exposed. But me personally, I said that he's already been exposed prior to that fight, but he got exploited even further, and you cannot accept that argument. Now, another thing is that you said you're going to be biased against, towards Golovkin no matter what. Now you're going to have to eat those words, and you have to deal with it. I'm out. Peace.